What are you talking about? Technical difficulties? I don't know. The
No.
intro's gotten all janky, honestly, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
No, got some fixing to do.
Oh no! Oh
Oh
no!
no. Och,
Oh,
nach.
oh no! It's well. See, just how we've had a very uneventful week. How's it been going, Jason? Nothing been going on.
Let's see. Pretty good. Finished Samurai Jack. It's interesting the difference between seasons 1 through 4 and then season 5. You can tell that Tartakovsky was making season 5 for fans of the show who grew up with the show. It was a genius move on his part to not just stick to the tone and the simplicity that went through on what was a kids show, and to kind of make it was definitely more adult in tone and
It
things.
matures.
Season 5, uh, yeah, and I felt that was a good move, because it was like, yeah, we're not really we're not really making this for the same audience that seasons 1 through 4 would have been for. We're making it for the exact same audience that we made seasons 1 through 4 for. So it's that continuation, and I thought it did a really good job with it. The conclusion made sense, so it was a good conclusion. I liked it. Trying to think if there's anything else. I know I watched some really horrible movies on YouTube, uh, but I can't recall what they were off the top of my head. They were that bad. I've just forgotten them.
Uh
Um,
huh.
but yeah,
Um.
that's about it for me.
Oh, look who it is. Uh, what's up, schoolgirl?
I'll cut to the chase. I've seen nothing, watched nothing, other than college students crying.
Yeah.
That's all I've done. How are you?
Seeing as how we've had a fairly uneventful week, I don't know. I played a bunch of classic video games. I've slowly gone through Mario 1, then Mario 2, then Mario 3. I played a bit through the Lost Levels. Um, I beat Sonic 2 the other day. That was just a great fun. Really enjoyed myself. And, nothing else happened during the week, so
Oh, you got to play games?
I did
You got
play
to do
games.
stuff?
Uh-huh.
Did you have fun?
I did. I had so much fun.
Oh, good for you.
I constantly would sit there and be like, "Oh, I'm not silver." Oh, I just rub my face.
Oh, I'm happy for you.
Well, to be fair, Silver, we've done what you're doing now, so I know what you're doing. I know your experience. I get it.
You don't
I-
know the extent of math I've been doing.
I would say that Silver's experience is probably worse than ours, just for all the crap that has been uh, interjected into college life that we didn't have to deal with when
Well,
we were
that's
going
fair.
through college.
That's fair. I'm
But
just saying,
but
workload.
other
Like
than that, I mean,
we all
the
do.
workload, the homework, yeah, we've all been there.
I've done the read a book before the day before a 5-page paper was due in that book the next day, and then get it all done that night, barely sleeping. Like I've done the late nights, girl. I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
So
Have you done the math though? That's fun.
You know what's funnier is it's because you hate math that it's worse for you.
Uh-huh.
Why are you doing
Oh,
the
it's torture.
prepubescent boy voice?
I go into this voice when I'm sad.
things aren't going so well for you. Well, guess what, everybody?
It ain't,
It's a
it
special
ain't so
week.
good.
It's a special week,
Oh, it
everybody.
feels so good, Mr. Stark.
it's it's been a special week, everybody.
Special.
If you haven't been paying attention or you live under a rock, which is a weird way to phrase it, good Lord, America had an election. Now, if you listened to the last podcast, which I'm sure you did because you're a loyal fan, we
No.
talked about how, hey, guess what? Elections happen. This is what democracies do. It's going to be fine. We're going to have to learn to live together. Very across the board successful. And if you think, as a gaming podcast, we are going to weigh in on the election, we are not touching that with a 10-foot pole. We are not touching the third rail of the and not because we're afraid to talk about politics. It's just we become a political podcast, then we become embroiled in the political discussion, and then that's what we're about, and we're not here to be about to be about that. So we're not going to weigh in on the election, so to speak, insofar as it affects everything else. Shocking to, I guess, many across the country, Trump did win the election. It came as a surprise to a huge portion of the population. Many, I don't know if it's people who lived in their own bubbles or people who were committed to one thing or another, and it came as a massive shock with the election that played out.
I think it was a little bit of both. People living in their own bubble and people thinking that there's no possible way that a convicted felon could become president, kind of thing. They're like, no way is that criminal. It would signal the end of the world, kind of thing. So that's not going to happen.
And it's super
So
happened.
I think a lot of it was, I think a lot of it was blinders. It's like there's no way that people would vote for Trump again.
Well, sure, and
You know what I mean?
and obviously, once again, not weighing in on the politics of it, but it belies a lot of disconnect that certain portions of the country have with other people. The lack of understanding as to why he might be appealing, and not the hyperbolic, rhetorical elements of why he might be appealing. But before we get too deep into that and the drama that's come across the internet, which is something we're super into, I've been curious as to who's at fault. Apparently, people are blaming James Rolfe for the onset of the Chud culture because he decided he wasn't going to review Ghostbusters 2016. The other funny thing, person that people have been blaming is Mudang from Southeast Asia. That's right, the hippopotamus.
The hippo? Yeah, obviously. It was Mudang's fault.
Well, they did one of those predictors of the election things where they gave him two cakes. One was a Kamala Harris cake and one was a Donald Trump cake. And Mudang ate the Donald Trump cake. And people are blaming Mudang by doing memes of Mudang dressed as a certain politician from the 1940s in Germany. Attacking Mudang.
It's a hippo.
I know. It is a hippo. Hence the meme, Mudang must be protected from liberal violence, and being accused of causing the election of Donald Trump.
Oh my gosh.
It's the happy hippo's fault, everybody.
There's literally nothing that Mudang did. Literally nothing. It was completely by chance that Mudang picked the Donald Trump cake. It had nothing to do with actual causality. It wasn't like by him choosing it, some butterfly effect happened that made Trump win the election. That's patently absurd.
No, Jason.
People should pull their heads out.
Mudang is goose-stepping his way into the White House. By the way,
like the Messiah. He's predicted
Yes.
everything.
By
he
the
does.
way,
He
Like a
does have a
prophet.
certain. He does have a certain resemblance. He does bear a certain resemblance to a certain Chinese politician that will go unnamed. But he kind of looks like
Oh.
Winnie the Pooh too.
a little bit, yeah. Anyway, by the way, I follow a time traveler subreddit of people who are committed to the idea of time travel. And many on there were predicting that they were either visited by time travelers or were time travelers, and were saying that Kamala Harris would win the election. So it must be a different dimension or a different timeline, because those things also did not play out. I'm also blaming Ross for how the election played out. I told him because he was getting too sleepy, because he's a sleepy boy, he couldn't last tonight. So I told him I would accuse him of Trump's election, and that if anybody is upset with Trump's election, you should direct that towards Ross.
He is with those Russian hackers.
Yes, well, I'm fully blaming Ross for how things played out in this election. Just because he couldn't make it here for the
Imagine
podcast.
there's a surgence of people come into the podcast and be like, "Oh my gosh, it was him."
It was Ross the whole time. Despite that, there's also been accusations that it's been gamers. Alyssa Marconte implying that young men in this country and gamers were the advent of extremism that resulted in the election of the president-elect who will become the 47th president. Once again, we're not here to weigh in on the election per se, but we're here to talk about the drama that unfolded afterwards. And there, good Lord, is there drama with this election. Good Lord. And I'm not talking just about the build-up to, but the aftermath of. We got weighs in from the Lucasfilm, one of Lucasfilm's creative directors, basically going on an ugly tirade on Twitter, implying that half the country are just horrible people. To read, F this disgusting scrotum, sin back and all skin back and sack and also who support him. Now, why is it a big deal that we bring him up despite the fact he works at Lucasfilm and stuff? He's allowed to have his opinion. Here's the problem. They fired Gina Carano for something similar. And Disney is a private company and is allowed to have whatever political opinion that they want and could fire whoever they want to. But the problem is the double standard. When he calls people horrible people and she gets laid off and he does not, ironic. But the internet didn't stop there. The internet got out of control in a lot of different ways. As I delay bringing up the next story.
Well, we should
Here we
really
go.
listen to people at Disney, the company that is driving themselves into the ground.
Oh, yeah.
How intelligent can they be?
Former World of Warcraft team lead predicts the AAA game studios will double down to get even stronger with protest messages after Donald Trump's
will
victory.
Completely fail and go out of business because nobody wants to deal with their garbage.
Well, because it worked with this political messaging in video games worked with Concord, if everybody recalls, and it worked with
and Dustborn,
and Dustborn, and it worked with the Suicide Squad video game by
and Veilguard,
gender and race swap characters. Veilguard, it's working with that one, and the drama involved. But no, we need to insert our messaging into everything. So
Creed
you do you. As we shift on, one of the Mass Effect writers is really upset about what played out. That she, I assume she, is trying hard to restrain the vicious need to lash out at other people over the election, one of the lead writers at Mass Effect, for Mass Effect. Yeah, gaming isn't accepting this very well. The gaming community isn't accepting this very well.
The gaming community needs to shut up and make good, entertaining video games.
Rockstar's co-founder 6 years ago. Rockstar's co-founder 6 years ago claimed that he was thankful that they will not be launching Grand Theft Auto 6 during Trump's presidency. Looks like this Grand Theft Auto 6 will be launched during Trump's presidency. Strange. Oh, we've got more. Let's see. We've got Variety's article. Jamie Lee Curtis, Christina Applegate, more Hollywood stars react to the shock dismay of Donald Trump's election. Why? Tell me why. Christina Applegate from Married with Children, who I like, who's very good in Futurama, cries out why. My child is sobbing because her rights as a woman may be taken away. If you disagree,
We're already being
unfollow
taken
me.
away.
She continued, please
What are you
unfollow me if
talking
you
about?
vote against
Or
female
get them
rights,
back.
against disability. Once again, Jason, we're not weighing into the politics. One might also say he isn't actually president yet, so I don't know what you think happened the day after, because Biden is still president. So nothing's changed at the moment. Christina Applegate talking about how her child is crying. If you've traumatized your child so much about an election, you're a bad parent if your child's weeping over what has happened.
Yeah.
Well,
Jamie
I
Lee
mean,
Curtis, really upset about what's happened. And this is inevitable.
If she's talking about her adult daughter, that's not on her. But if she's talking about a little kid under the age of 10, yeah, it's your fault. You're a bad parent.
As Hollywood
And no
in
matter
New
who
York,
won, I'm not concerned about my rights as a woman.
Silver's okay. As Hollywood and New
Yeah.
York wake up this morning to the confirmation that Donald Trump will be the next president of the United States, the mood among many celebrities is one of deep disappointment, even despair. Lexi Underwood, star of Little Fires Everywhere and Cruel Summer, posted a swatch of data breaking down percentages by demographic, writing, just so we're clear, black women and men get some rest. Actress Viola Davis wrote, thank you for your bravery, Kamala Harris. Thank you for loving America's promise. So what am I getting at here? Well, as we've seen with this last election was very Hollywood involved. And I know it's coming to the shock of everybody, but if anybody's actually paid attention, Hollywood was aggressively involved with this. Do you remember the cast of the Avengers showing up on a call supporting Kamala Harris with this recent election? Do you remember Robert De Niro standing outside of courthouses rambling on about how much he hates Trump and how much he supports Kamala Harris? Do you remember every, like Tom Hanks, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. This was a celebrity, the hippo. This was a celebrity endorsed election. Okay.
Yeah.
Heavily endorsed and heavily involved in, which is fine if you feel necessary to weigh in on politics. Here's the problem. The reputation of Hollywood has been immensely damaged the last few years. Why? Because Hollywood feels it necessary to insert themselves into politics and insert their politics into everything. The reaction, look, Hollywood is very upset because they picked a side, for good or ill.
Yeah.
And what this tells me is that no one gives a shit about what Hollywood has to say. Whether or not you're a fan of whoever won, I'm not weighing in positively or negatively on the election on whether or not Trump won or not. What I am saying, though, is Hollywood picked a side, and we've now realized that nobody gives a shit about what Hollywood has to say about anything. Let alone the mainstream media who were in their pockets. Did you see the countless videos of late night talk shows lamenting an election? And let me remind you, because Trump wins the popular vote, they are now in the minority. So they're talking to a minority of the country and lambasting the
Yep.
opinions of the majority. I don't care whose side you're on. If you're happy about the election, you're dismissing it. There's a massive disconnect between those in Hollywood and those in the media, those in gaming, and the actual audiences they propose to serve, that they propose to make products for. And this is why Hollywood is failing. This is why gaming is failing, and a bunch of these games come out like Concord are steaming piles of horse crap, because they're trying to produce products for people who don't want them, and they don't understand the other side. And this has nothing to do with whether or not I voted for Trump or not. This has everything to do with the disconnect that a huge portion of the ruling class in this country has. If you even spent any time trying to understand the other side, you might have had a better chance. Think of all of the effort they've made to demonize sort of men in this country, and then you're shocked men don't show up for you.
Yeah, it wasn't just that. It was that they were demonizing everyone in the country who didn't follow their political and ideological beliefs. And so instead of, I mean, it goes back to that adage of you can attract more flies with honey than with vinegar. It's like they were using the vinegar approach and expecting us all to come flocking to their side. And it's like, nah, that's not going to work. If you're going to call us a bunch of racists and whatnot, why would we support you? You don't like us, as evidenced by your vitriol against us. So maybe we'll go and check something else out. I mean, if you had taken the time to, properly frame your ideological views and said, look, everyone's welcome. We welcome everyone. Then you probably wouldn't have had as big of a backlash as you did. But the fact that you said, here's our political and ideological beliefs, and if you don't believe them, you're a horrible, horrible monster, and we hate you. Well, then the people that you said are horrible, horrible monsters, why would they support you? You don't like them. You don't like us. So we're going to go find somebody who actually appreciates us, because obviously you don't.
Well,
I just don't understand why they were going in this direction.
All of the polling suggests that they lost men across the board. And it wasn't just white men, it was Hispanic and it was black. They lost men. And this should tell you when it comes to, like, we spend a lot of time talking about video games and movies, and obviously we bring up sort of woke stuff, but woke belies that it's a bad movie usually, that it's a bad game. It's not necessarily that it has a political message. It's because it's bad because of the politics that's inserted into it. And they don't realize that spending all your time attacking, like the culture war occurring in video games and movies and pop culture in general, played out in the election. And all of the negative vitriol you had towards a huge demographic of your consumers of these products reflected poorly in people just going, well, I don't like you then. If you don't like me, why would I show up to support you? And that's where they lost support across the board. And it's not shocking. This is the culmination of everything we've talked about. I don't care if you didn't like Trump. If you didn't like Trump and you're a Democrat, you need to sit down and think to yourself, what did we do wrong? This would be the wise decision at this point, to recalculate. And perhaps the worst thing you could do is encourage across the board in media and pop culture in general to hate men and have that be your message, because that is not a winning strategy. And it wasn't a winning strategy.
As we've seen. In talking about this, I remembered what the movie was that I had seen. It was called Head of State. It's a Chris Rock movie. He is an alderman in Washington, D.C. And the Democratic nominee for the presidential election dies. And the cabal at the top of the president of the Democratic National Committee gets together and says, you know what we need to do? What we need to do is get a candidate whom we can run against the Republican, because we think the Republican's going to win this year. The Republican candidate was the vice president for 2 terms, and so it's like he's due kind of thing, and so they pick Chris Rock because they're thinking that he'll be their little stooge and puppet, and they'll be able to lose the election this year and then win it next year. And in watching that movie and in just talking about this, some of that now feels like Kamala Harris. That they're like, we're going to put her up because we think she's going to lose. And then Trump will get elected, and the country will have a meltdown, and next year we can run the actual
conspiracy theory aside, I would push back on that. Once again, we're not here to talk about the election.
Very, very much conspiracy theory.
Hold on.
We're
like not here to talk, Jason. Jason, hold on.
With the movie.
Hold on. We're not here to talk about the election. My point is, just as an aside, if they didn't think that she could win, they wouldn't have spent $1 billion.
No, they wouldn't have.
That being said,
the
point of this conversation is the disconnect that people in Hollywood, in pop culture, and as it seems in Washington, D.C., has with the American public. Look, you are more than welcome to make products that cater to your demographic. The problem is when you make a game, let's say Concord, that basically caters to none, that caters to no men, no straight person, and that's the majority of the demographic that buys video games, then perhaps you're making a calculatedly poor decision with the type of game, especially when it costs as much as it did.
Right. And one of the things that we've always talked about on this channel, when it comes to video games of this nature, one thing that we've always said is, if you want to make this game, go for it. Go for it. We're not going to come down on you and say, don't make this game. We may come down on you and say, it seems like a bad idea to make this game, but we're not going to say don't. What we're going to say is, do make this game, but don't be surprised if people basically vote with their wallet in this case, and they don't buy your game, because what you're doing is you're targeting your game for, one, a demographic that doesn't really play video games, and two, a demographic that is so small. The percentage of like trans identifying people in the United States, while growing, is still so small that the 100 people who are gamers in that very, very, very tiny group, they bought your game. And that was basically it. That was, you said sky's the limits, and basically your the limit of your sky was 100 people kind of thing.
Well, and so the core of the problem is the cost versus how big the audience is. Because if they had only spent like $20 million on that game, for a game that caters to a very small demographic of their consumer base, then it wouldn't be that big a story. It's the fact that Concord was a huge game that cost lots of money and catered to none of the general audience.
Right. The thing is that what these people don't seem to be aware of, and I don't know how they got to this point without being aware of it, is that you always cater to the general audience. You try to make your appeal broad enough so that it reaches your target market, but you want to make it broad enough that it captures the general audience, because the general audience, they're the ones that are the largest market, and they're the ones that are going to make or break your game.
Yeah, if you're trying to be successful.
Yes. And
I mean,
so
you can make a very political indie game. I mean, you're welcome to do that. Yes. But the problem is, if you spent $300 million on that indie game, you're not going to get a return on your investment.
No, like you said, if the game had been $20 million, it still would have been a flop financially. It still would have flopped, and it would have flopped hard. It just wouldn't have flopped as hard as it did because the budget was much, much bigger for it. And even a $3 million indie game, it still would have flopped. You still wouldn't have reached your target market. Or you still would have, I should say, you would have reached your target market, but your target market wouldn't have been big enough to support you, even at $3 million.
Uh, uh,
You have to go for the biggest market you can.
these are all very good points, but let's not veer too far off the conversation when it comes to Hollywood. I'm going to bring up an article, and I'm going to ask Silver directly. There's been a proposition. Did celebrity endorsements actually harm the Harris campaign? Do you think it had an effect, Silver?
I think it did. Because you hear all the stuff coming from people who are supposed to be in the entertainment industry and going like, oh gosh, well, don't want to hear that stuff anymore. So I do think it had a negative effect. I thought like, oh, everyone's gonna vote this way because we have all these Hollywood endorsements, but that's clearly not the way it went.
I think because Hollywood, there's such a negative perception of Hollywood lately. I think it felt like people were being talked down to when they bring in Hollywood endorsement.
It definitely felt that way.
And especially in the long term. And amazingly enough, Hollywood was very involved in this election, and it did not pay off. And I think that stink is going to rub off on them.
Yeah, I hope so. I do find it interesting. One of the things that I saw recently about this was about Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift was basically saying that she approved Kamala Harris or voiced approval for her. And I heard that she is being given the blame for Kamala Harris losing. I'm like, okay, I guess so. If we're saying that because of all these celebrities were voicing their opinions, and the general public is sick and tired of hearing these entitled, spoiled, rich people opining about how much better one party is over another, that it just seems that they've lost touch with reality, then yeah, maybe.
Well, I think we've established that it's Mu Dang who's at fault for the election.
Well,
oh yeah, it's all Mudang.
The baby hippopotamus.
Stupid hippo.
Mudang confirmed.
I put this in. I wasn't sure if I was going to add this, but I put this in to talk about how crazy people are when it comes to their politics. So there's this story of Margot Robbie, who recently had a child. Good for her. And the child's a baby boy. She's being attacked on the internet because she's a feminist icon who was in the Barbie movie, and they're upset that she had a boy.
Oh my
gosh. No!
Whoa! It's not up to her.
To read, I can't believe she became a boy mom. What a tragedy. Boy mom is more of a mindset beyond being the mother of a boy, even though I would abort. But it's simply not fair to make that a male gets to grow and say his mother was Barbie. Like, he's not going to appreciate that in the way a girl would. God. It's such a waste.
People need to be thrown into the sun.
True, we aren't sure how she necessarily feels about mothering a boy. I would say she could try again for a girl, but I would never want to subject a little girl to having an older brother.
Oh my gosh!
There's still time. Sometimes
seriously,
they have caught death. Good Lord!
Death? Oh my gosh!
You just need to die. The baby boy first. They're upset that a woman that played Barbie, which became a big feminist iconic movie, had a boy. This is the weird disconnect that's happened across the internet. And as much as you might say that this is kind of a minor thing, it sort of belies the
I hope that
the disconnect that people are having everywhere.
Sorry. I hope that this causes some people to wake up. I mean, I know that supposedly the woke people have woken up, but they haven't. They have securely pulled the covers over their heads and plugged their ears and are shouting la 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 at the top of their lungs at the face of reality. I sincerely hope that this causes people to say, "Man, these woke people are terrible."
Well,
we need
the
to get
Simpsons
away from them as fast as we can.
The Simpsons meme comes to mind where Principal Chalmers is sitting there, and he's like, am I wrong? No, it's the children. And basically it's sitting there, it's like, did I make a mistake? No, it's the men, or it's the rest of the country. It's the country's fault. It's not because how I was handling things. Who I had one of the better takes out of Hollywood was Chris Pratt, who basically was saying that essentially both sides need to calm down on the drama. To quote, trying to make sense of the election through the eyes of Americans on both sides, which may help explain why he's conspicuously missing when it comes to the Avengers Assembly Democracy ad. Trying to understand people who disagree with you politically is a healthy way to approach what had happened in the election. Not attacking everybody for disagreeing with you, throwing a hissy fit on Twitter, causing lots of drama and attacks. I mean, setting aside the conversation about Hollywood itself and the massive disconnect and the mistrust that we all have with Hollywood now, because they picked a political side, and now they're in that side. And that's going to reflect how people consume their products. That's going to reflect how people approach it. But setting that aside, there's been a weird fallout across the internet. Reddit has been less restrictive of right-wing talking points. YouTube has been less restrictive when it came to recommended. Famously, they were shadow banning the Trump Rogan conversation. And it took Rogan calling it out before it started to show up in search engines. We actually had Mozilla right after the election laying off 30% of their staff. Mozilla.
Yikes. Wow.
Most of these layoffs are involved with their DEI diversity departments. Like suddenly
that's
an election happens and it's like there's a cultural shift in the country where a lot of these companies don't want to be seen as restricting people that they might have political disagreements with, because people will remember, so to speak. And look, I am hopeful that things will get better, whether or not I agree with everything Trump says or not, and whether or not I voted for him or not. My hope with Biden would be things would get better. I don't know if Hollywood's going to learn a lesson. According to a lot of these articles I've brought up, it seems like they might double down. Now, if you remember from the 2016 election, Hollywood was at its height when it came to popularity. And we got a lot of sort of Trump pushback media. Hollywood is not at its height this time. And they do not have the money, or can they afford to spend a lot of their money and time having media that pushes back against right-wing extremism or Trump, so to speak, because they are no longer riding high. I wonder what's going to happen with coming media when it comes in relation to Trump. Are they going to ignore it? Are we going to get a lot of like milquetoast, middle of the road, action-y sort of movies? It's hard to say where they move from this point.
I think this might. I mean, it could be that they'll double down. I think that if they do, you'll see a lot of studios and things going out of business. I do see that this is that some studios may try to do some course correction here, and get back on the look. We make movies, we make entertainment. That's what we do. So that's what we're going to focus on. My prediction is that the studios who decide to double down will go out of business and we won't hear from them again. The ones that decide, you know what, we learned our lesson. We shouldn't dabble in politics. We should focus on making entertainment for the masses. I think those ones are the ones that are going to turn around from this.
It's hard to predict.
That seems to be the case in just about any.
I think you're stating what would be a sensible decision. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to act sensibly. As you recall, when it comes to every election, and it has been worse with Trump, is all of the calls to, I'm going to leave the country if the person I don't like is elected. And inevitably, nobody does.
And that mass exodus, it left my head spinning.
Right. Well, Jason, believe it or not, there are people who have left the country.
Oh, I know. I'm not saying that there wasn't anybody, but if all the people who
Jason, They
were
have
gonna
already
leave the
started
country?
fleeing. No, they've already started fleeing, and a lot of them seem to be going to England. Strangely enough, Tom Hanks has left.
Oh gosh.
He'll be back.
His tweet said he is at an undisclosed location. The problem with fleeing the country, especially if you're in Hollywood, is you have to come back to film movies or go to
Yeah.
go to award
Or
shows.
you just retire at this point.
I mean, it's one thing to say
Sorry,
I fled.
America still could be a part of your life.
Yeah, well, it's one thing to say I fled, but then you're constantly returning. So it's like, did you flee? Did you? I mean, how much did that really mean anything?
Yeah.
Oh, the rest of my family in the middle class can't flee the country, so I have to come back and visit them.
Not my family. There have been people leaving. As much as Hollywood were very
I'm not
much
saying
shills
that
in this election,
Yeah.
a lot of them put themselves on center stage politically, and they are getting backlash for it, and it's not surprising. And some have left, much to my surprise. But yes.
Well, see, the thing is that we heard this rhetoric before when Trump was first elected. All these people in Hollywood and stuff saying, "Oh, if Trump gets elected, I'm leaving," and I'm sure some of them did, but most of them didn't. It was an empty, hollow threat. And I think that what we're going to see this time around is pretty much more of the same. Either they'll leave for a little while, but they'll be back, or we won't see as many people leaving as have said they would. Again, it's just an empty, hollow threat, in my opinion. And
well, Miley's. Well, look. All I'm saying
ridiculous.
is, Jason, there was a lot of people saying I'm going to flee the country that didn't in the last election. There are people who have actually left this time. So that some people are actually living up to sort of what they've said they were going to do. Regardless, we'll see how it ends up falling out. If they quote unquote leave and then return 5 days later, or are seen in New York, even though they claimed they were going to flee. Miley Cyrus famously said in 2016 that she was going to leave. And then everybody was like, well, why haven't you left? And she's like, that's stupid. I'm going to stay to fight for my country. And it's like, well, then you didn't mean it, did you?
Then you didn't mean it. It was an empty, hollow threat.
Regardless.
I think that maybe some of these people who have left they'll come back and it'll be like, I was just going on vacation. I needed to get away from it.
Ross has his girlfriend's friend said that she is leaving. But yes, we have a news dump. The drama has been glorious. If you're into internet drama, it has been something to behold. It's going to be fine, everybody. And I would have said it was going to be fine if Kamala Harris was president. We all just need to stop vilifying each other. But Hollywood, I think, has stepped in it, and it belied how little we actually care about what they have to say. The Hollywood has been irreparably damaged in the last how many years, to the point where a huge chunk of the country doesn't give a shit about what they have to say, what their political opinions are. And I think it damages their reputations and Hollywood in general by being overtly political. And I think it's playing out now. That's what we saw. Nobody cared about what Hollywood had to say. That being said, we really get to the news dump. Lots to cover.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast's big steaming pile of news dump.
Oh, so exciting. If you've never listened to the podcast before, we go through articles as quickly as humanly possible. I'm going to begin on a somber note. Tony Todd. And I know they listed him as the voice of Spider-Man's 2 Venom, but he was Kern, Worf's brother in Next Generation. He was in the Candyman horror movies.
Candyman, yeah.
He was in Platoon and unfortunately passed away. Now, not a massive actor, but one actor I actually quite enjoyed. And one thing I always like when it comes to actors, not that I like actors passing away, what I like when it comes to actors is when they do pass, we get to still enjoy their work for years to come. So it's not like they're going to be forgotten. So unfortunately, Tony Todd passed away. Sympathies to his family. Not that they're going to care that a small podcast has said that, but sympathies nonetheless. When it comes to Sama streaming, Penguin is number one. This last week, Penguin's actually really good. I would recommend it. Followed by Don't Move on Netflix and Tulsa King Season 2, Lincoln Lawyer, Diplomat, so on and so forth. So good for Penguin. To give you an idea of what's actually popular as opposed to... And it's funny when you see like the Acolyte and stuff, and it's not even getting into these lists, and you're going, oh, it's not actually that popular. One of my favorite things to bring up, because of how much I hated this game, hey everybody, Alan Wake 2 still hasn't made its money back. As our current
weekly
update,
Alan Wake 2 has made its money back.
Yeah, as our current update, Alan Wake 2 still has not made its money back. Its development and marketing costs. I'm so disappointed with that game. And this is somebody who paid for it. I have reason to be annoyed. Ringing on to news. So, much to IGN's credit, Star Wars fans have rolled their eyes as we've been infected with a new Disney plan for a new trilogy, bringing the unreleased films, the list of unreleased films, up to 14 of of unreleased Star Wars movies. As I adjust this real time.
14!
Yep. Are you excited about the new announced trilogy that we're at now?
No.
There is reason to be hopeful for the new trilogy. I included another link that talked about some of this stuff.
Well, let me bring that up, and then you can. But we are at 14 announced but not released, and I'm going to bring up Jason's article here.
Right.
Why don't you go ahead?
So this one, they're talking about 10, 11, and 12, this new trilogy for Star Wars. And one of the things that can give us a little bit of hope here is that according to, I believe it is, let's see, scroll down a bit.
Yeah.
This guy here, I think it is, Simon Kinberg. He's developing the new trilogy, and he says that it won't continue the Skywalker story, Skywalker saga storyline. So it's not going to have anything to do with Rey and now Rey Palpatine, Rey Palpatine Skywalker. It's going to go in a different direction here. So it is a glimmer, a scintilla of hope here that we might get something good, because it's not going to be coming on the coattails of something that was terrible.
Well, I mean, we can get rhetoric from them all of the time until we see the movie. I'm not holding out hope.
And I'm like I said, it is a ray of hope. It is a slight glimmer here. It's not, hey, everybody jump on the bandwagon. It's, hey, this guy did Star Wars Rebels, which did pretty well. And he's not going to go into the Force Awakens stuff that was, bad. He's possibly going to bring us something good. Possibly.
All right. Shifting on, the Star Wars Outlaws. Right. The Star Wars Outlaws creative director has been let go, and they brought in a new one.
A little late. This is like the closing the barn door after all the.
Yeah, the game's already out, but apparently, according to him, they're going to have a massive rework of key areas like combat, stealth, and controls, and he hopes to make the game much better for the holiday season to up the sales.
So, No Man's Sky.
I don't think they're going to do it by the holiday season is the problem.
No.
And No Man's Sky didn't have
we're already in the holiday season. Well,
right, but No Man's Sky's problem wasn't that the story was terrible. Like, you can't rework
True.
that, can you? And we got this Tyranid story.
Oh, so this. I brought this up because this is about Warhammer 40K Space Marines 2. Apparently, Games Workshop was really, really heavily involved with Saber Interactive when they were making Space Marines 2. They wanted to make sure that Saber Interactive got things like the minute details that only the most pedantic would have even noticed, like the width of the
I'm
armor.
I mean,
Yeah.
I like the idea that they're involved, but the fact that Games Workshop being involved belies any sort of quality. I'm skeptical, because Games Workshop has violated their own lore multiple times, and they're a really crappy company.
Yeah.
But that being said, I'm encouraged by the
Yeah, and
idea
see,
that they interceded and said, you know, the Tyranids should attack differently, that sort of thing. I mean, that's neat, but
Yeah.
you know.
See,
Games
that was
Workshop
kind of my
sucks.
thing. It was like this to me seems almost like this company is schizophrenic here almost. It's like on the one hand they're like, no, you have got to nail this lore and it has to be this way. But then they do things like with Amazon where they're like, oh yeah, sure, we can make the Custodes female. They've always been female.
Well, and
Wait,
that's not
what?
even the major issue.
They've never
Games
been.
Workshop has had a bad reputation with fans for a long time. As somebody who has
Yeah,
purchased hundreds, if not thousands of dollars of their product over the past 30 years, Games Workshop sucks. By the way, they suck. Moving on, Nintendo is suing a streamer for about $7.5 million, as I recall, because
Holy
he
cow.
pirated their
Oh.
games and then streamed them. In particular, the new
Oh.
Mario and Luigi Brotherhood or Brothership, and I think the other Princess. Let's see, Super Mario Jamboree. But he pirated them and then streamed them on Twitch, and Nintendo's just going to sue the pants off.
So as long as he wasn't pirating them, he bought them legally, and then he was streaming them. That would have been okay. But because he pirated them, they're
Well, Jason, these were
Wow,
before the
they're-
games came out.
before the games came out. Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh gosh.
Well, I mean, no. The thing is that going after somebody for pirating your software, sure, go after him. It just seemed like like swatting a fly with a bazooka here.
Nintendo
in
does
Nintendo's
this.
Case.
They swat flies with bazookas. They
But,
go
yeah,
after
they do.
YouTubers. I mean, Nintendo has had a history of being heavy-handed with people who use their products when they don't want them to. For good or ill, I understand copyright law, and Nintendo has a right to whatever.
Yes.
That being
Yes, they do.
said, this situation, he pirated them and then streamed it before the games were even released, which is a massive issue.
How did he get a hold of them?
Pirating, I don't know. Somehow it leaked on the internet, as far as I can tell. Somebody got early copies, maybe leaked it, and then he was streaming it.
maybe like a pre-release copy for the media or something.
Sure, which seems like a wise idea to do that before the game came out.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll get you attention because people could see the game being streamed before its release. But yeah, that's also going to cost you millions
do
of
it
dollars,
legally.
as it seems.
Do it
And just-
legally. The thing is I'm all for the companies like Nintendo or whatever saying, look, you're a reputable streamer. Here's a copy of our game. You can play it and stream it so people can see what it's like, but you are not to do X, Y, and Z. You are not to give it to anyone else, and blah blah blah. Ironclad contract with whoever they want. I'm all for that. But this, where he was streaming it, not only did he stream it without their consent, but he was pirating it before it was even launched. Yeah. I don't know that Nintendo
he
needs
has-
to.
The punishment is
$7.5
justified and coming his way. We need to keep pushing on. So much news, so little time. Nintendo Switch 2 will be backwards compatible, which everybody seems to be psyched about. I'm happy.
That is pretty
Oh,
nice.
thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of us own
I
the
always
Switch.
like it when the new consoles come out and they really try to take care of the previous version owners. Because that to me builds a lot of goodwill.
Well, Nintendo has had a sketchy history when it came to backwards compatibility, because they've switched disc types and then they've switched to cartridge and from, so it's sort of been back and forth when it came to backwards compatible. But the fact that we have, because like the Wii, you could play the GameCube games,
Right.
but I don't know, did the Wii U allow you to play Wii and GameCube games? I don't recall. Nobody bought the Wii U is the problem.
Right. I
But
don't
now they've
know.
gone to the cartridge, so it's not like your discs do anything for the Switch. But it's encouraging that Switch 2 will be backwards compatible. So it'll probably have a cartridge slot, and they'll continue with that technology. So good for Nintendo. I'm happy about that turn of events. IGN has an article about the failures of the Borderlands movie, which crashed and burned. To read a little bit, Lionsgate John Feltheimer, the poor box office performance of Borderlands, the critically reviled adaptation of the beloved looter shooter games, released this past August for a long development and production period, it quickly became an arguably flop, ending its box office run with a dismal 31 million worldwide, as they suddenly drop an ad in the middle of my screen. At any rate, on Borderlands, nearly everything that could go wrong did go wrong, according to Feltheimer. It sat on the shelf for far too long during the pandemic, and reshoots and rising interest rates took it outside the safety zone of our usual strict financial models. So it looks like it ended up costing more than it should have, but it wasn't a good movie, so it performed poorly. He added that several other releases in the quarter. What's that, Jason?
It's one thing to talk about it's one thing to talk about reshoots and rising interest rates and stuff, but the story was bad. The cast was pretty. I mean, Kate Winslet looks like she should, and so does Krieg there. But what is her name? Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't really look
Jason,
like Dr.
this is
Tannis.
Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett. Sorry.
We are not watching Titanic 2. Well, right, but she's a little overaged for it is the problem, because she would be in her early 20s. Regardless, we don't need to get into that. The point being is, here's reflection on this. Feltheimer told investors that the box office disappointment reflected an environment with less margin for error than ever before. Although he did express more hope for the future. Specifically, he brought up films like next year's John Wick spin-off Ballerina, etc., etc. It was a massive failure. They spent too much money on it, but it wasn't a good movie. And it's interesting to suggest that there's less margin for error. Well, because the costs have inflated to a huge degree, and that means you have to have a banger, otherwise you're losing money. And that's a mistake when it comes to filmmaking. Jason?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that he's saying that this margin for error was small, but if this had been any other property, I don't know that would have been the case. But because this was Borderlands, and it has a massive following, and we expect it to, line up with the games and things that we've been playing, I think that made the margin for error even smaller.
I don't think, look, Borderlands is a big enough property among gamers that there was some expectations on what they wanted to see. Yeah. I don't think it was a big enough property that general audiences were upset that the characters weren't portrayed in the way they were supposed to. I think at its core, it was just a bad movie.
Right, but I'm saying that because it was supposed to be a Borderlands movie, that shrunk the margin of error even more. If it had been just a generic action shooty movie,
I don't think the plot of Borderlands, the Borderlands is a fun, goofy, a bit more loose storyline. I don't think that sort of movie garners strict expectations when it comes to what sort of movie. Like, they could have done almost anything. This isn't
They could
Shakespeare
have.
we're talking about. is my point. We need to keep
Well,
moving
no,
on.
I get that.
We need to keep moving on. Joker 2 actor says that it's the worst film he's ever made, worst film ever made, and that on set people were talking about that the movie was going to bomb, and it's not even hate watchable. Tim Dillon, the comedian who plays the security guard in the movie,
Why did
said
you
that
even
it's the
make the
worst
movie?
film ever made. I think what happened after the first Joker, there was a lot of talk. Oh, this was loved by incels. This was loved by the wrong kind of people. This sent the wrong kind of message. Moral rage, nihilism, all these think pieces. And then I think, what if we went the other way? And now they have Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga dancing to the point where it's insane. He says it has no plot. We would sit there, me and the other guys were all dressed in these security outfits because we're working at Arkham Asylum. And I would turn to one of them and we'd hear this crap and I'd go, what the F is this? And they'd go, this is going to bomb, man. And then I go, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. We were talking about it at lunch and we'd go, what is the plot? Is there a plot? I don't know. I think he falls in love with her in prison. It's not even hate watchable. That's how terrible it is. And it didn't perform financially.
No.
It's funny that somebody on
Seriously,
set was like, it didn't look like it was going to be good when we were there.
Joaquin Phoenix should have walked away from this project. He should have said, "No, I'm not going to do this," and walked away.
He did a good
And let the
job.
project
I thought
just
Joaquin
fizzle.
Phoenix did a good job acting. I just didn't like the movie. As seen with the
No, I
review that me
get it.
and Ross did, which you're welcome to check out on the channel. Anyway, let's shift along. I agree with IGN's assessment. The PS5 Pro is powerful but unessential, which is why it's not selling. They have an extensive review where they talk about it. I don't think anyone deems the $700 price tag necessary to buy the product. It's too expensive.
Nah. We've kind of talked about this in the past with other console generations. This might have been on our previous iteration of the podcast and stuff. But the fact that when you start getting into the $700 range, people start sitting there and going, "I could just buy a computer for that much.
Yeah.
Why am I
Moving
buying
on.
this console?"
We go back over Dragon Age Veilguard. I think we could get an update. Dragon Age Veilguard peaked at 89,000, with players seem to about halved for their regular. So it seems like we've gotten our peak. And
Yeah.
as with most games, you've paid attention to any Steam database. We'll pick any random one. A lot of these are bad examples. Let's see. But basically, the trend is you get a massive peak when the game first comes out, and then it declines. Because you get a lot of people buy games that they don't play, which is fair. And there
There
was
is
a lot
that.
of expectations that
But
the numbers with the Dragon Age, because it was at 80,000, it peaked at 89, that somehow meant it was massively successful. We compared the contemporaries for Steam Steam Gaze at the time, and it's decent,
Yeah.
but it's not amazing. It's not. I'm not invested in whether or not Dragon Age fails or succeeds, but there was a lot of misinformation when it comes to whether or not Dragon Age was being amazing, and everybody was predicting, oh, it's a banger, it's awesome, and that sort of thing. Compared to contemporaries and the numbers on Steam, it did okay, comparatively. It's not amazing, and it didn't sell amazingly, is the problem. You were saying, Jason?
Right. Well, one of the things that people have to understand is that when you get a new game, that's when you're playing it. It's new. The thing is that games are coming out now so freaking fast that you really have to get your enjoyment out of the game right out of the gate, because the next game is coming along, and so you've got to put that one aside and go to the next game. Now, if it's a really, really good game, people will go back and visit it, or they will play it in parallel with something new that they're playing. But if it's not good, it'll peak right away, and that peak will then die away, and you won't have
Well, to be fair,
anything really.
all
after that.
games peak and then die away. It's whether or not it's got long lasting,
Right.
or whether or not the initial sales were good enough. one thing to point
Right.
out is that developers actually do calculate their release dates based upon competition. Because basically it's like, oh, well, I'm coming out with this game and there's a Call of Duty, but because our game's different and it's an RPG, we're not going to be competing with audiences. But then you have to consider, well, this game, like let's say you release a Final Fantasy VII, the expectation is people are going to have a bit of length of time to play it. So you don't want to release it and then have another game release a week later to steal them from playing the game, that because it's a longer game, it's going to take time. So there's a lot of strategy when it comes to releasing to get to have your players get the most out of it. Anyway,
Right. But the thing is that regardless, we're getting so many games so fast now.
Well, right. Point still stands. Anyway, let's move on. Dragon Age Veilguard. So take this for what it is. There is a streamer, Endymion, who apparently is talking to people behind the scenes at EA and BioWare. And he's been talking to them about player count and stuff. So take this for what it is. This is his insider. He could be lying out his butt. But according to him, from what he's heard, there's been a large amount of people asking for returns at BioWare in the number of at least 30,000.
Yikes.
Wow.
I don't know how you could confirm this, but if that's true, that's concerning. Now, we don't actually have direct numbers as far as sales, but according to him, the game has sold 500,000 copies. Now, that sounds really good, but that's not actually really good when it comes to how big the game is. To point out,
Right.
apparently, according to him, Star Wars Outlaws has sold about 1 million, so this is half as much as Outlaws.
Yeah.
So take this for what it is, but if there is a massive amount of returns, that's not a good sign for the game for its sales down the road. Also, additionally, there was the rumor that there was a large amount of pre-order cancellations with the game building up to it. Something like 14% of physical pre-orders were canceled building up to the game
Wow.
release. Once again, we don't have concrete numbers from the horse's mouth, so this is a YouTuber.
And they're probably not going to give it to us ever.
No, I mean, I think the only actual
might be-
concrete numbers we have is the Steam numbers, but
Right. You might be able to glean some of these numbers from looking at the studio's financials, but even then it would be rather difficult.
anyway, we, because of the success of Penguin, we may be getting a Batman spin-off of the Joker character that was very alluded to, which would be weird if we haven't had another movie with that character, if we just had a series where he's being the Joker, but whatever. Apparently, it's in the works. Penguin's
So
really good.
is he the Joker in the Penguin series?
No.
Is that what it is? And
No.
then they're thinking, oh, okay.
No. And the Batman, at the very, very end of the credits, you have a blurry image of the Batman talking to a Joker character in what looks like Arkham Asylum. We don't get a very clear image of the guy. To
Okay.
spin that into a series,
That seems dumb.
right, to spin that into a series is like, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
We don't
I
have
mean,
enough
especially
from
with
him.
the bomb that we just had of the Joker 2. I don't know that people would trust a Joker series.
Well, that's not the point. The
probably have
Penguin's
to
doing
look
really
up water
well.
for it.
It looks like they might be able to make another series that could do really well. So if it's the same people that did the Penguin, maybe there could be success. I don't think it's damage to
yeah.
the Joker character. The problem is, why are you coming out with the Joker before we've even seen him in film at this point? Like, wouldn't you have him in a Batman 2 before we ever saw him as his own series?
I think you'd think so.
You're doing the
Regardless.
Agatha Witch approach.
Yeah. Moving on. Apparently, there has been a massive counterfeit system and game market that's been going on, where they've caught 12,000 fake Nintendos, Sega consoles, and Atari 2600s that have been destroyed because there's been a huge amount of counterfeit and fake consoles being leaked into the retro market. Lots of, I guess, people are trying to recreate classic consoles and sell them.
Yeah,
Let's shift it
there's a lot of
on.
nostalgia for that kind of stuff now.
The retro market there's money in it. Apparently,
Yeah.
according to Blizzard leaks, we might see a Warcraft 2 remaster. I'm down. Blizzard hasn't made something I've wanted to make in a while, but I'm a fan of Warcraft 2, so I'm down for that. Love me some Warcraft 2. Let's move on. After the massive failure of Suicide Squad, Rocksteady looks like they are rumored to do a remake of Arkham Asylum.
Huh.
Because why not remake a game that was
Okay.
good instead of trying to make a new game that everyone's going to hate? And I'll remind you, the people that are at Rocksteady now are not the same people that made the game in the first place.
Yeah. Look, I'm okay with remakes to a certain extent, but when the game is not really that old, it seems like they're jumping the gun here on a remake. I'm saying, NES remakes, SNES remakes, sure, whatever. N64 even era remakes. But when you're basically doing a remake of a game that came out last gen,
15 years, Jason.
I get it.
And it's
But it
not
still
last gen.
seems
This is
not long enough.
last gen. This is PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 era. So it's not even last gen.
Well, let's see. We're on Xbox
We're on
One.
PS5.
Was
This
the
is
360
PS3
before
era.
Xbox One?
You're getting older and time is slipping.
I think I'm thinking of Arkham City.
or even Arkham Knight.
Yeah.
Regardless, look forward to that. Mass Effect TV series seems to be in the works from the Fast and the Furious 9 writer. I don't know if that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And I
Does
don't
anybody
trust
know anything
Amazon
about
to make a
Fast
good
and
Mass
Furious
Effect
9?
series. It probably is going to suck, just like Halo sucked.
Probably.
Regardless, we are going to end the night with, guess what, everybody? They have had layoffs at Kotaku, and it looks like Alyssa Mercante is no longer with them.
She was so
She's awful.
annoying.
Yeah, she's awful. And we're going to end there. We don't have Ross here. You know what? I'm just going to use my... I thought about making a new intro, but that would have worked with the Halloween theme. We're just going to do Fight Night regardless. Hey everybody, it's Jason's favorite segment because he's the one that gets to do it. Let's bring up our slides. I gotta make sure it's connected to it correctly. Yes, it is. All right, Jason, what do you have? By the way, we are having Fight Night
Maybe.
where we argue through a bracket about this time around monsters, cryptids. Let's see. We argue to see who would win in a fight between the two. I have Bigfoot bias, by the way, but
Yep,
go ahead,
this-
Jason, take us off.
This time around, the fight is between Bigfoot, who stands between 6 and 9 feet tall. Well, Yeah, 6 to 9 feet up to 10, 15 feet tall. Is a bipedal humanoid or ape-like being covered with black, brown, or red fur, broad shoulders, no visible neck, and long arms. This one, Bigfoot's been around for who knows how long.
The great North American ape, the Sasquatch, Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah. Yep. Great movie. Let's see.
With John Lithgow.
Yeah.
And the sad
Some
scene where he yells at him
observations
to
describe
leave.
Bigfoot as more human than ape. Particularly in regards to the face. 1971, multiple people in the Dalles, Oregon filed a police report describing an overgrown ape. And one of the men claimed to have sighted the creature in the scope of his rifle, but could not bring himself to shoot because it looked more human than animal. Common descriptions include broad shoulders, no visible neck, long arms. Many skeptics attribute to misidentification of a bear standing upright. Some alleged nighttime sightings have stated the creature's eyes glowed yellow or red. However, eye shine is not present in humans or any other known great apes, and so proposed explanations for observable eye shine off the ground and in the forest include owls, raccoons, or opossums perched in foliage. And
Where
he
is
is
this
up
thing
against Cape
spotted?
Lobo. Where is it from?
Yeah.
I believe it's from South America or
Okay.
Africa. Let's see.
The image looks kind of like an anteater.
Yeah. Brazilian mythology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dom
Let's
Certeza.
see where to go. Cape Lobo has two forms, an animal form and a humanoid form. In its animal form, it's like a tapir with attributes of a dog. In its humanoid form, it has the head of a giant anteater, or a tapir, or a dog, depending on the version of the myth. The body of a human and rounded bottle-shaped legs. It has lots of hair on its body and runs through the forest near human settlements in the floodplain region. It's sometimes described as having a single leg. I don't know about that. That seems kind of dumb. It is known to hunt newborn puppies and kittens, but will kill humans by squeezing them and drinking their blood and eating their brains if given the opportunity. The only way to defeat it is by shooting it in the navel. In order to hunt humans, it produces a powerful scream which attracts them into the woods while also scaring them. It is also said that some people will transform into Cape Lobos with age.
So is this kind of like a werewolf bear thing where he could turn into a human and
Yeah,
or
probably.
bear monster? Not restricted
Probably
by the,
kind of a rare creature thing from Brazil.
right, not restricted by the silver bullet issue, so to speak. Actually, I
No,
want Silver to
but-
start us off. Silver, where do you think these fights go?
Go back to Bigfoots.
Our boy.
Is that the only information we got? We have a lot on the Cape Lobo there.
It's basically the same kind. There's a lot of sightings of Bigfoot. There's a lot of agreement on what Bigfoot is. That he's a giant biped, kind of a mix between ape and human, and that's about it.
Well, Bigfoot
So
has
he's
the
gonna
magical.
he's gonna be really, really strong.
Now, Bigfoot has a magical ability to not be ever have a picture taken of him clearly. It's always going to
Yes.
be fuzzy.
It's always
So-
blurry.
Yes. Walking through the forest.
I mean,
How-
if you know anything about apes are vastly stronger than humans.
Well, here's the
Yes.
thing.
Just
How
far.
big is the Cape Lobo?
Cape Lobo, let's see. Let's see if I can find height on it.
Because we might just have just a ginormous Bigfoot to a 5-foot Cape Lobo.
Stands between 8 and 9 feet tall.
Okay, so
Oh my
similar.
gosh.
They're similar in height, yeah.
So a giant bear monster
Okay.
versus a giant
Oh, wait.
ape monster. And the bear monster has claws.
My stupid argument.
Okay. Bring it.
That thing does have claws, but
Yeah,
I'm
he does.
thinking. So here comes the Bigfoot, right? It is like a, he's like a monkey thing. That means he has naturally higher intelligence, because monkeys have pretty good intelligence compared to most animals. So he comes along, uses his great strength, and incapacitates the Capilobo there, possibly ripping its arms off. And the only way to kill it is by shooting it in the navel, so I'm reasoning that he takes a pebble and just shoots it. Just a strong flick.
I mean, I'm encouraged by the ape form, which is very strong, and the fact that he's got hands so he can grip. He could grab you. And that nose, that face is subject to grabbing. He could grab it and snap it backwards.
Yeah, also, the Capilobo hunts newborns, puppies, and kittens, and in my imagination, I believe that the Bigfoot is like Coco the gorilla and loves kittens. So just kills the thing.
He's got rage. He's got rage against the crimes and sins of the Capilobo.
Yeah, Coco the monkey. Come on.
Okay.
That's my reasoning.
All right. What do you think of Jason?
Well, I think they're fairly evenly matched size-wise, and you do bring up some good points about the face. His hands don't look all that like opposable thumb kind of thing, where he'd be good at grabbing, but those claws would do a lot of damage. I don't know. I do have I do think I have a bias for Bigfoot, even in this instance. I think that to Silver's point about the intelligence of apes and things, I think that we've got a smart cryptid on our hands who has the wherewithal to take down the Capilobo, even though it might struggle to do so.
He has the strength, he's got the intelligence, and the stealth.
That's right. He is stealthy.
And the rage from the puppies and kittens.
All he has to do is do that weird pose walking through the woods, and bam, he's gone. Where'd he go? Peers behind the Capilobo and freaking kills him.
I mean, realistically, stat-wise, the claws would probably give one a natural edge. However, Bigfoot's American.
Think of the fur on that Bigfoot. That gets some defense.
Bigfoot's American, though. He's my boy.
Yeah, look at all that hair. Has natural defense against the claws and scratches.
And scratches.
Scratches.
Well, I am going to vote nationalistic, and I say Bigfoot.
All right.
Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Bigfoot for the win.
Yeah. How dare you,
Jason's going to vote for the
Capilobo, killing the puppies and kittens.
He got outvoted.
You know, I was leaning Capilobo, but then I saw he kills puppies and kittens, and I'm like, no, this thing has to die.
Screw this, Capilobo.
So next week, we will have Chupacabra versus the Goatman of Maryland. So this is interesting because it's Chupacabra, the goat sucker, against the Goatman.
I'm excited for that one.
Oh, the Goatman. Regardless, we've had a fun time hanging out with you guys. Enjoy the podcast, share, like, subscribe, all the general stuff. We do this for fun. And hopefully you're having fun with us. Closing thoughts there, Jason.
One thing that I always find myself trying to do, especially around election time, is trying to look for positives. I never think that whoever is in charge is going to just run the country into the ground. I never think that the person who winds up being in charge, that the reason that they ran for government is because they wanted to see America fail. I think that everybody is going to try to do their best. I do believe that some people's best is not necessarily in my best interest, and so but I do think that there is, regardless of the rhetoric that's going around, I think that there is some optimism there, and I think we should focus on that.
Silver.
It was the hippo's fault.
Screw that baby
and
hippo.
You hippo! You dirty
Yeah,
hippo!
Hippo's fault. And screw you, Capilobo. How dare you?
Screw you, Capilobo. Screw you, Mudang. Oh, Mudang.
That is all.
I understand the paranoia. It's all going to be fine, everybody. And guess what? If this does devolve into jackboots in the streets, I will also be fighting them with you. It's not gonna, but that's really hard to do in this country. So calm down the rhetoric. The worst case scenario is not going to happen. And maybe, perhaps, as we get through this and things aren't as bad as everybody thought they were going to be, we might realize that maybe the vitriol and the rhetoric and the hyperbole was just way overblown. And if it wasn't,
I hope so.
I've got a lot of food storage, so you can all just burn. I'm fine. Regardless, let's get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. To the outro as I delay. There we go.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast or on Instagram at Distracted Gamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy!